I hope you're ready to set up ESLint on this project and on all of your future projects so that your code becomes more professional, more scalable, and more team-friendly. ESLint is going to allow you to find and fix problems in your JavaScript code. ESLint statically analyzes your code to quickly find problems. It is built into most text editors, and you can run ESLint as part of your continuous integration pipeline. We're going to use ESLint to find problems and fix them automatically just by saving our file. I'm going to also provide you with a custom ESLint rules file that we're going to follow throughout this project. ESLint Setup is not something that a lot of people teach you, including myself. In my YouTube videos, I simply don't have enough time to go over the entire ESLint setup and proper configuration. But in this course, as I've told you, we're going to learn everything, including production level resources such as this one. So let's start with setting up ESLint. We can go to View and then Terminal. We can stop our application from running by pressing Ctrl+C and then Y. We can clear the console and we can run npx ESLint --init. If you don't have ESLint installed, it might ask you to install it, but in my case, it immediately initialized a questionnaire. This set of questions is going to help us optimize our own ESLint setup. So in this case, we would like to use ESLint to check syntax, find problems, and enforce code styles. We are going to use the most modern JavaScript modules, import and export. We're going to use React as a framework, technically Next.js, but it is based off of React. We won't be using TypeScript in our project, and we're going to run our code in the browser. We do want to use a popular style guide, and specifically, that's going to be Airbnb style guide. We want to format our config file to be in JavaScript. Now, ESLint is going to ask us if we want to install dependencies needed to run our linter. So we're simply going to press yes. And there we go. ESLint has been set up. You can immediately see that something is being read here. That means that we have some warnings. If this is not read for you right away, what you can do is go to Extensions and then install ESLint extension. There we go. Integrates ESLint JavaScript into Visual Studio Code. So just install it and then close and reopen your Visual Studio Code. Once that is done, you should be able to see that there are some warnings. But on top of that, you'll also be able to see that a new ESLint rc.js file has been created. We no longer need the previous .json one, so we can delete it. You can notice that this file extends plugin React recommended and Airbnb. You can also notice that it has no specific rules. For that reason, I'm going to give you my own ESLint configuration that I've compiled over years working in React and Next.js field. The entire ESLint RC is going to be below this lecture, and you can simply copy and paste it. As you can notice, this is going to add some extra rules that I found to be useful. You don't have to think about what do these rules mean, because ESLint is automatically going to correct these things for us. Sometimes ESLint is doing just too much linting, so in some cases, we've disabled some rules just to make our development faster. With that said, if you now go to our index, you can still see that something is read, even more things than before, and if you hover over them, you can see it says function component is not an arrow function. Why isn't it? Maybe we should convert that. In here, we can also see missing semicolon. Why not add it? Let's make our code consistent. But here's the great thing. Instead of manually correcting the errors, what we can do is press Ctrl+S or Command+S to save our file, and the errors are going to automatically be fixed if they can be. The semicolon was added here, but due to the structure of the export default, it cannot automatically fix this. So let's simply say function home, and let's move that export default to the bottom. Now we can save the file one more time, and you can see that it automatically converted this to an arrow function, even with an instant return, because there wasn't anything else above the return statement. So this is pretty cool. And the reason why it's doing this because you want to stay consistent. You don't want to sometimes create a function that's going to be a basic function declaration. Then the other times you might want to create a class, and the third time you might want to use an error function. We need to stay consistent with our spaces, with the style of our code, and with everything else. It might not only be you. Imagine if you're working in a team. Different people are going to have different ways of writing code. ESLint is going to make sure that everything is consistent and readable for every single part of the team. With that said, it is possible that ESLint might have not automatically fixed these errors for you. In that case, you can press Ctrl-Shift-B or Command-Shift-B on Mac, and then go to Open Settings JSON. You can start typing Open Settings JSON and click right here. This is going to open up our Visual Studio Code configuration file. In here, I have a few manual rules that I've added that are going to make some changes to our project. Mainly, editor.codeActionsOnSave, source.fixAll.ESLint is true. This is going to enable ESLint autofix on save. I also have some additional rules such as ESLint.working directories, client and server when working on full stack applications, and also the Git folder is excluded at the start, so I've made that false and included it in our file tree. These 3 snippets of code are going to be linked below as well, so feel free to copy them and paste them in your own settings JSON. After you do that, I'm sure that ESLint is going to work. Okay, with that said, our ESLint is fully set up. Even in a file where we had 8 to 10 lines, everything was read. Imagine if you wrote a few functions, a few components, and an entire user interface with hundreds of lines of code. Imagine how many problems ESLint would help you solve. And now you have my own configuration guide for ESLint so that you can use it on all of your own future projects. You also know how to run ESLint init and then go through the questionnaire to set up the best ESLint configuration for your own needs. With that said, ESLint is now done and we can move to the next lecture.